community gave him a new perspective about such a life. Many of the people with whom Palen lived heard voices that told them they were no good, that they were a problem, that they were a burden, they were a failure. They heard a voice that kept saying, if you want to be loved, you had better prove that you are worth loving. You must show it. Now I came to understand that the spiritual life involves learning to listen to a voice that says something else. A voice that says good things about us. While Palen was part of the Daybreak community, he became friends with a resident named Janet. She came to him one day and asked, "Henry, can you bless me?" Palen walked over to Janet and made a little cross on her forehead. Janet said, "Henry, that doesn't work. No, that's not what I mean." An embarrassed Palen replied, "I gave you a blessing." But Janet insisted, "No, I want to be blessed." Palen couldn't understand what she meant. That is until a few days later. After a small worship service, Palen told the people sitting there that Janet wanted a blessing. Then Janet walked up and put her head against Palen's chest. He spontaneously put his arms around her, looked her right in the eyes, and said, "Blessed are you, Janet. You know how much we love you. You know how important you are. You know what a good woman you are." Palen suddenly saw all sorts of energy coming back to Janet. She seemed to be relieved from the feeling of depression because suddenly she realized again that she was blessed. She went back to her seat, and immediately other people said, "I want that kind of blessing too." People kept walking up to Palen, and he found himself embracing person after person, telling them that they were loved, that they were good, that they were important. My sense is that each of us, at some level, yearns for such a blessing. We yearn to hear a voice tell us that we're loved, we're good, we're important. We yearn to believe that message, but we're surrounded by other messages. Messages that speak of the world's values. You must be self-reliant, cheerful, bold, ambitious. You must stand up for yourself, win the respect of others, attain an acceptable economic status. As Jesus begins what we come to know as the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew's Gospel, he turns the world's values upside down. He offers his followers a radically different perspective about themselves and how they're to live in the world. Jesus speaks of blessings for those first followers and for us today. But somehow over the years, the message Jesus delivers on the mountain has lost much of its ability to really touch us, to inspire us, to surprise us. Do this, and you'll receive that. Instead, he uses descriptive language. Jesus describes how the world really works, how God's reign operates, how reality looks from God's perspective. Whatever the values of the world may tell us, Jesus is giving a different message, one that invites us to see things, including ourselves, from God's perspective. It's not those who enjoy abundant wealth or manage to avoid pain who are blessed. It's not the powerful or the legalist who are blessed. It's not those who follow the paths of expediency and violence who are blessed. It's not those who manage to protect themselves who are blessed. As one commentator notes, in the face of Hollywood, Wall Street, and Washington, this message may seem quaint, impractical, and out of touch, like a sweet story from a bygone era. But from Jesus' perspective, the reality is the exact opposite. This message reveals what the world really looks like. And if we want to know what it means to be blessed, we'll have to risk letting go of our limited view of reality and begin to see the world from God's perspective. And maybe that will lead us to hear something else surprising in Jesus' message. Maybe we can hear Jesus calling us to form a community in which God's perspective becomes our way of life. Jesus never seems to be interested in forming generally religious people who conform to a generally good moral code. Instead, he calls people from the curious crowds that surround him to follow him in a radical way of life that turns the status quo upside down. Jesus calls us into a community that will include suffering, poverty of spirit, and a hunger for what's right in God's sight. A community that will kindle a desire for peace and a yearning for God at the center of life. But a community that also will open itself to others. A community that will see others from God's perspective and will help them hear a voice of blessing. Another of my favorite authors, Frederick Buechner, senses the surprise in this call. For him, this call is surprising because it comes to us as we are. Yeah. We don't have to do something or become something before God blesses us and calls us. If we simply listen, we will hear the divine message for which we most yearn. And according to Buechner, that message surprisingly speaks of us becoming God's saints. Here's how he puts it. To be a saint is to be human because we were created to be human. To be a saint is to live with courage and self-restraint, but it is more than that. To be a saint is to live not with the hands clenched, to grasp, to strike, to hold tight to a life that is always slipping away the more tightly we hold it. But it is to live with hands stretched out, both to give and to receive with gladness. To be a saint is to work and weep for the broken and suffering of the world. But it is also to be strangely light of heart in the knowledge that there is something greater than the world that mends and renews. Maybe more than anything else, to be a saint is to know joy. Not happiness that comes and goes with the moments that occasion it, always there, like an underground spring, no matter how dark and terrible the night. To be a saint is to be a little out of one's mind, which is a very good thing to be a little out of from time to time. It is to live a life that is always giving itself away, and yet is always full. Beneath all our yearning for whatever glitters brightest in this world lies our yearning for this kind of life. Blessing. I encourage you to reflect on that word this week, to turn it over in your mind, to test it in your heart, perhaps even to dance or wrestle with it. Who knows? It may turn out to be the exact word for which you've been casting about, the one that will help you express something new about your life of faith, the precise word, one from which unexpected meaning will emerge. Amen. This morning we had the great gift of being able to share together in the Lord's Supper. As we begin to prepare for this time of communion, I invite you to stand as you're able and join in singing our communion hymn, Come and Dine. people of God, gather around this holy table, for we are blessed more than we know. Blessed are we that we come with empty hands, knowing only our poverty. Blessed are we that we bring heavy hearts, all too aware of what life has taken from us. Blessed are we who choose a way of gentleness in a world of fierce competition. you share